On the eve of a new year, while working late, I received a gift from my husband, who had been away for 3 years. The janitor, her face pale, whispered in my ear, "Don't open it. Throw it away, or you'll lose your life." Half an hour later, a horrifying event unfolded, and I realized I had just narrowly escaped a great disaster. It was Christmas Eve, and outside, the entire city of Chicago hummed with festive music and sparkled under a blaze of colorful lights. But the 18th floor of the office tower where I worked was as silent as a forgotten island. The lonely clatter of my keyboard echoed in the quiet, mingling with the soft whistle of the wind through the glass window panes, creating a mournful symphony for those of us selling our labor to capital. I leaned back in my plush office chair, gently rubbing my aching temples, trying to suppress a sigh as I looked down at the stream of traffic below, a river of red and white lights. It had been 3 years since Caspian left for an engineering contract in Dubai, and I hadn't had a complete holiday since. The phone on my desk suddenly buzzed, the screen lighting up with a notification from the family group chat. My mother had sent a picture of a magnificent Christmas Eve dinner, steam rising from a golden brown turkey, accompanied by a short but heartfelt message. "Honey, don't work too hard. Come home as soon as you're done. We've saved you a plate." My nose tingled, and tears welled in my eyes, but I quickly looked up at the ceiling to stop them from falling. Just then, a private message popped up. It was from Caspian. He had sent a large Zelle transfer with a very generous number, along with a sweet note. "My dearest Sloan, you've worked so hard. I'm sorry I couldn't be home again this year. I had a gift delivered for you. It's with the concierge in the lobby. Please go down and get it, for me." My heart skipped a beat. All my fatigue seemed to melt away. Caspian was always like this, thoughtful and romantic. Despite being thousands of miles away, he never let me feel left out during the holidays. I quickly shut down my computer, slipped on my wool coat, and hurried towards the elevator, my mind racing with excitement about the surprise gift from my husband. The hallway was deserted, the only sound the sharp, dry clicks of my heels on the polished tile floor. The building's lobby was empty. The night security guard was probably taking a quick nap or on a call with his family. Sitting squarely on the concierge desk was a large, square box, about 2 feet wide, wrapped in luxurious emerald green paper and tied with an elaborate silver bow. I lifted the box. Its considerable weight made me even more curious. I wondered if it contained an expensive cosmetic set or one of those high-tech German kitchen gadgets I had once admired online. Cradling the gift in my arms, I felt a warmth spread through me, as if I were being held in Caspian's strong embrace. I turned to head for the revolving doors when a figure suddenly rushed out from the women's restroom. It was Zola, the thin, weary cleaning lady I often saw when I worked late. But tonight, Zola looked different. Her dark-ringed eyes were wide with panic. She was still clutching a mop, and her faded blue uniform was rumpled and splattered with dirty water. She ran and stood directly in my path, panting as if she had just escaped some unseen monster. I jumped back, startled, and asked with a frown, "Zola, what's wrong? Why are you so frightened?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes were fixed on the gift box in my hands, or more accurately, on the intricately tied silver bow. Her face was ashen, drained of all color, and her chapped lips trembled, unable to form words. She dropped the mop with a clatter, and her rough, calloused hand seized my arm, her nails digging painfully into my skin. She hissed through her teeth, her voice hoarse, like wind whistling through a rotten doorframe. "Miss Sloan, don't open it. Whatever you do, do not open that box." I stared at her, bewildered, thinking she was delirious or that her age was getting to her. I tried to gently pull my arm away. "Please, calm down. This is just a gift from my husband in Dubai. What's the matter?" But Zola shook her head violently, tears starting to stream down her hollow cheeks. She pointed a trembling finger at the silver bow, her voice shaking with fear. "Look closely at that knot. Do you see how it looks like 2 figure-8s looped together?" I glanced down. The bow was indeed tied in a strange way, not a typical butterfly knot, but 2 symmetrical, interlocking circles, an odd and intricate design. Zola swallowed hard and leaned close to my ear, her cold breath on my neck sending a shiver down my spine. Back in my grandmother's village, they call this the mourner's knot. They only use this knot to tie the feet of the dead for burial, or to seal things being sent to the underworld for those who have passed. If a living person opens it, they say it will cost them their life. Zola's words hit me like a bucket of ice water in the dead of winter. My hands began to tremble, and I almost dropped the box. I looked at her, my eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and fear. The logic of a modern, educated woman told me this was just the superstitious talk of a simple, uneducated woman from a rural background. But looking into her deep-set eyes, filled with desperation and sincerity, my intuition told me she was not lying, or at least that she truly believed in the terrible things she was saying. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. I looked at Zola, keeping my voice as steady as I could. "Zola, are you sure? My husband is an engineer. He works with Westerners. How would he know about these macabre customs?" Zola didn't let go of my arm. She squeezed it tighter, her eyes pleading. "Please, miss, just trust me this once. I've seen this knot one other time in my life. And that time, someone really did die." The conviction in the weary woman's eyes shattered my last shred of composure. I nodded, gesturing for her to follow me to my car. We drove out of the downtown loop, the car gliding through the empty night streets, heading towards the industrial outskirts of the city, to a place with deserted canal banks where few people ever went. The silence in the car was thick, broken only by the hum of the engine and the heavy breathing of two women carrying an unspoken, amorphous fear. We stopped at a desolate stretch of the Chicago River, where weeds grew rampant and the dim yellow light of a lone street lamp cast a sickly glow on the black, still water. The river wind whipped against our faces, cold and biting, carrying the pungent smell of mud and refuse. I held the gift box, feeling as if I were holding a ticking time bomb, wanting to hurl it away yet morbidly curious about what was inside. Zola stood beside me, shivering in her thin jacket. She urged me on. "Throw it, miss. Throw it in the river. Don't worry about the gift. Your life is what's important." I bit my lip and, with all my strength, swung my arms and threw the box as far as I could. It traced an arc through the air before landing with a loud splash in the dark water, sending up a spray that shattered the night's silence. Zola and I held our breath, watching. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds passed. The water's surface was calm. Nothing happened. I turned to Zola, about to chide her for being overly anxious, when a horrifying spectacle unfolded before my very eyes. From the spot where the box had sunk, the water began to bubble furiously, as if it were boiling. A thin white smoke rose, carrying the suffocating smell of bitter almonds that hit our noses even from dozens of feet away. A deep, muffled pop echoed from beneath the river, and then a bizarre, blue-green flame erupted violently on the water's surface, burning like a will-o'-the-wisp, incinerating what was left of the box in an instant. My legs went weak, and I collapsed onto the cold concrete, my eyes wide, staring at the ghoulish fire dancing on the water. If I had opened that box in my sealed living room, if I had eagerly cut that ribbon, I probably wouldn't be sitting here now. I would have been burned to death or suffocated by that deadly almond scent, and no one would have ever known. Just then, the phone in my coat pocket buzzed violently, shattering the deadly quiet. I shakily pulled it out. The screen lit up with the beloved name I had been longing to see. My love. It was a video call. Zola looked at me, her eyes burning with a mixture of hatred and grief. She nodded, signaling for me to answer. I used both hands to hold the phone steady and swiped to accept the call. Caspian's handsome, scholarly face appeared. He was sitting in a luxurious room with a fireplace roaring behind him. The smile on his face was as bright and warm as the morning sun. He waved at me. "Happy New Year, my love. Did you get the gift? Have you opened it yet? Were you surprised?" Looking at that smile, hearing that sweet voice, I felt an overwhelming wave of nausea. The man I had loved and trusted for so many years, the man I was always so proud to tell everyone about, now seemed so foreign, so terrifying. I forced myself to swallow the bitter lump in my throat and mustered the most twisted, fake smile of my entire life. I got it, honey. The box is so beautiful, I haven't had the heart to open it yet. I'll wait until I get home. A flicker of disappointment crossed Caspian's face, a glint of coldness in his eyes that vanished as quickly as it appeared. He maintained his caring smile. Okay, you can open it when you get home then. Just be sure to call me. I want to see your expression when you see the surprise inside. I quickly nodded and ended the call, unable to endure another second of his repulsive hypocrisy. I turned and threw my arms around Zola, tears streaming down my face. I knew, from this moment on, my life had taken a sharp turn onto a completely different path, one that was dark and fraught with peril. After the brief video call with Caspian, I couldn't hold it in any longer. My stomach clenched violently, and I vomited right there on the windswept riverbank. Zola rushed to my side. Her rough hand patted my back gently, a comforting gesture from an elder that I hadn't received in a very long time. She said nothing, just silently handed me a bottle of water she had brought with her. Her gaze drifted out to the black river where the ghostly green flame had just died out, leaving trails of white smoke to dissolve into the void. I followed Zola back to her small apartment, tucked away in a winding alley in the Pilsen neighborhood, where the dim yellow streetlights were not enough to dispel the darkness and dampness. The rented room was cramped, barely fitting a rickety bed and an old fabric wardrobe, but it was organized and spotlessly clean. On the wall, mottled with damp patches, she had a small altar. The smoke from a burning incense stick filled the air with a warm, sandalwood scent, a stark contrast to the cold of the Christmas Eve night outside. Zola shakily opened an old wooden chest under her bed and took out a picture frame, carefully wrapped in dark red velvet. She handed it to me, her eyes red and welling with tears. "Look, this is my daughter. Her name was Dahlia. She was beautiful and smart, just like you are now." I took the frame and looked at the young woman smiling brightly in the photograph. Her smile was as clear as the morning sun, full of life and hope. But when my eyes shifted to the man standing next to her in the picture, my heart stopped, and the blood in my veins turned to ice. The man was a few years younger than he was now, a bit thinner, but that half-smile and those flirtatious eyes were unmistakable. It was Caspian, the husband I had cherished and been so proud of, the man who had just video-called to wish me a happy holiday a few minutes ago. "This man," I stammered, my voice catching in my throat. My trembling finger pointed at the man in the photo. Zola nodded, tears rolling down her hollow cheeks and falling onto her wrinkled hands. "Yes, that's him. The one who killed my daughter 5 years ago, on a night just like this, right before the holidays." Zola began to recount the tragic story of her life, her voice low and broken by choked sobs. That year, Dahlia also received a surprise gift from her boyfriend for Christmas. He claimed it was sent from far away to be romantic. My girl was so excited to open it, and then, a loud explosion, a chemical fire that engulfed her small apartment and took the life of my only child. The police at the time ruled it an accident caused by a compressed aerosol can in the package exploding due to a temperature change. There wasn't enough evidence to charge anyone. And Caspian, he quickly collected the life insurance policy Dahlia had taken out not long before and vanished without a trace. Zola knew it was murder. She knew her daughter had died unjustly, but as a poor, working-class woman, how could she fight against such a cunning and ruthless man? She had spent the last 5 years searching for him, wandering through big cities, working any job she could find to survive and to keep the hope of revenge alive. That was until she started working as a janitor in my office building and happened to see Caspian picking me up on a rainy day. She recognized him immediately, even though he was fatter and looked much more prosperous than before. "I've been waiting for this day for a long time, miss," Zola said, gripping my hand, her eyes blazing. "I couldn't let him harm another good woman. I had to save you, and I have to make him pay for what he did to my Dahlia." The two of us, one old, one young, one prosperous, one poor, clasped hands before the photo of the deceased, making a silent vow in the middle of a stormy Christmas Eve. Leaving Zola, I drove back to my luxury apartment as the clock struck midnight, marking the beginning of a new day. The spacious, well-appointed home that I once considered a happy sanctuary now felt cold and terrifyingly empty. Every object in the apartment, the matching mugs on the counter, the wedding photo on the wall, the decorative items Caspian had picked out himself, seemed to mock my foolishness and blindness over the past 3 years. I didn't dare turn on the main lights, letting only the dim yellow glow from a living room lamp cast flickering shadows on the walls. I remembered Zola's careful instructions before I left. You have to find proof. See what he prepared for your death, especially the money trail. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my panicked mind, and walked quickly to my home office to turn on my personal computer. My head spun with 1,000 questions. Why did Caspian want to kill me? We never had any major conflicts. I always provided for him financially, even taking care of his family back home. I started digging through my digital files, searching for anything related to finances and insurance, and then I froze, staring at a PDF file saved in a hidden folder named Future Plans. It was a $2 million life insurance policy, signed exactly 1 year ago. The insured person was me, and the sole beneficiary was none other than Caspian. The memory flooded back like a slow-motion film. I recalled the day Caspian called, his voice filled with worry and concern. "Honey, I've noticed you haven't been feeling well lately. We should get a life insurance policy just in case. It's also a way to save for our future children." At the time, I was drowning in a major project at work. His words sounded so reasonable, and I thought he was just being a responsible, forward-thinking husband, so I agreed without a second thought. Caspian sent me the link to the e-contract, urging me to sign quickly to get a promotional rate. I had signed my own death warrant, just like that. All because I believed in the love and responsibility he had so expertly manufactured. $2 million. Was that the price he put on my life? I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound, as tears streamed down my cheeks. It turned out that in the eyes of the husband I loved with all my heart, I was just a golden goose, and I was most valuable to him dead, leaving behind a massive fortune. A tide of rage swelled in my chest, burning my very soul, transforming my pain into a smoldering fire of vengeance. I wiped away my tears, my gaze becoming sharp and determined. I would not sit back and wait to die. I had to unmask this killer. I thought of my younger brother, Ezra, a brilliant cybersecurity expert I had once hired to set up my company's security system. I quickly sent him a message, attaching the emails Caspian had sent me over the years. "Ezra, I need your help. Can you check the real IP addresses of these emails, find out where they were actually sent from? I need the results immediately." After sending the message, I sat listlessly in front of the computer, staring at the desktop background, a photo of Caspian and me from a trip to Colorado before he left. His smile in the picture was as radiant as ever, but now, all I could see behind it was the face of a demon, methodically plotting to push me into the abyss. This would be a long, long night, but it would also be the night that marked the awakening of a woman who had been betrayed to her very core. On Christmas morning, as the first rays of the New Year's sun filtered through the blinds, I was still sitting motionless in front of the computer like a stone statue. My eyes were dark and sunken from a sleepless night, but my mind was unusually clear. It was the painful clarity of someone who had just had all their illusions shattered. The chime of an incoming message broke the room's silence. It was from Ezra, my brother, along with a brief report that was powerful enough to bring my world crashing down. "Sloan." I ran a deep scan. None of these emails were sent from Dubai. The actual IP address originates from a server in Chicago, specifically from the Lincoln Park area. It looks like the sender used a VPN to fake their location, but they couldn't get past my advanced tracing tools. I read the message over and over, each word a needle piercing my heart. Lincoln Park. That was less than 10 miles from where I lived, a mere 20-minute drive, and for 3 long years I believed he was thousands of miles away, in a distant, sun-scorched land. I burst out laughing, a dry, bitter laugh that echoed in the empty apartment. So it was all a lie. All those late-night video calls, his complaints about the scorching desert heat, his excited stories about the extravagant architecture, all of it was a perfectly staged play. He had built a fake set right here in Chicago, using backdrops and editing apps to deceive me, turning me into a foolish puppet in his hands. I remembered previous holidays when he would call, pretending to be in a lavish hotel room, complaining about being lonely and missing the feeling of a cold Christmas back home. At the time, I had cried, feeling sorry for my hard-working husband so far from home, promising myself I would work even harder so he could return sooner. He was probably sitting in a comfortable, air-conditioned room on the other side of town, laughing at my gullibility. The feeling of betrayal and humiliation consumed me, my chest tightening as if someone were squeezing my heart. For 3 years, I had lived in agonizing anticipation, remaining faithful, sacrificing my youth for a phantom husband. I sent him money to pay off his debts, money for his expensive cost of living over there. It turned out I was funding his lavish lifestyle right here in this city. I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out towards the distant high-rises of Lincoln Park. Somewhere in that concrete jungle, Caspian was hiding, enjoying a life of luxury built on my sweat and tears, and plotting my demise. He wasn't just an emotional fraud. He was a professional con artist, a master actor in this tragic play of a marriage. My sorrow slowly gave way to an overwhelming rage. I clenched my fists so tightly my nails dug into my palms, drawing blood, but I felt no pain. I made a silent vow to myself. I would not let him get what he wanted. I would find where he was hiding, and I would expose this despicable man for who he truly was. The game was just beginning, and this time, I would be the one in control. Without wasting another moment, I drove to Zola's apartment on Christmas morning. The streets of Chicago were unusually quiet, but my heart was a raging inferno. When I showed Zola the IP trace results, she wasn't surprised at all, just gave a slow nod. Her eyes held the sharp wisdom of someone who had seen too much of life's darkness. I figured as much, miss. A man like him doesn't have the guts to actually work hard in a foreign country. He's only good at leeching off women, at deceiving kind-hearted people like you and my daughter. Zola's voice was calm but laced with deep contempt. She folded the paper and tucked it into her pocket, then looked at me with determination. Leave it to me to find his hideout. Don't forget, I'm a cleaner. The network of people like me is vast. We are in every corner of this city. Zola was right. The janitors, the security guards, the delivery drivers, they were like living cameras, silently observing everything the wealthy often overlooked. Zola immediately contacted her friends in the service industry who worked in the luxury apartment buildings in the Lincoln Park area. In less than a day, they had a precise location for Caspian. He was living in a high-end condominium called the Riverbend, one of the most exclusive properties along the Chicago River, under the alias Blake. Zola, with her quick thinking and street smarts, borrowed an old shopping cart and the gear of a friend who collected recyclables. Pushing the cart piled high with cans and cardboard, she loitered near the entrance of the Riverbend, observing. That afternoon, she called me, her voice trembling with anger. Miss, I saw him. He's gained weight, looks so slick. He was driving a shiny black luxury car, looking very prosperous, not at all like someone working a tough job overseas. He just drove out. The doorman even bowed to him respectfully, which means he's been a VIP resident here for a long time. Hearing her words, I felt my blood boil. While I was eating instant noodles to save money for him, he was living like a king, enjoying the most luxurious services this city had to offer. The image of the struggling, hard-working husband he had created completely crumbled, replaced by the portrait of a vile, parasitic, and deceitful man. Zola added that she had chatted with some of the housekeepers in the area. They said Mr. Blake's apartment was on the 20th floor, with a beautiful, direct view of the river. He had been living there for nearly 3 years, supposedly a successful entrepreneur recently returned from abroad. This information only cemented the horrifying truth I was facing. I met Zola at a small coffee shop near the Riverbend. Seeing the thin, weary woman in her old clothes, looking out of place among the stylish patrons, my heart ached for her. It was this small, unassuming woman, driven by a mother's boundless love and relentless perseverance, who had helped me pull back the curtain on a horror I never could have imagined. "What do we do now?" I asked, my voice steady again. Zola looked me straight in the eye, her own eyes glinting in the twilight. "You have to see it for yourself, miss. You need to witness his real life with your own eyes, so you won't have any hesitation or weakness left. Tomorrow, I'll find a way to get you inside. You need to see the whole show." On the day after Christmas, the festive spirit still lingered in the air of the bustling riverside neighborhood. I dressed in my plainest clothes, wore a face mask, and pulled a baseball cap down low to hide my face, sitting quietly in a cafe across from the entrance to the river bend. Zola sat beside me, nervously fiddling with the hem of her worn-out blouse, her eyes glued to the massive iron gate that separated the world of the rich from the rest of society. We had been sitting there since early morning, as patient as hunters stalking their prey. Around 3 p.m., as the sun began to cast a soft golden glow, the gate slowly swung open. A sleek, shiny black sedan glided out smoothly. I immediately recognized the license plate Zola had given me. My heart clenched, and my hands under the table balled into tight fists. The car's tinted window lowered halfway, and I saw him, my husband, the man I thought was shivering in the European cold. He sat behind the wheel, wearing stylish sunglasses, his hair slicked back with gel, dressed in an expensive polo shirt. He looked handsome, vibrant, and a world away from the weary, haggard man who called to complain to me. But what made me freeze wasn't his polished appearance. It was the woman sitting in the passenger seat next to him. She was young and beautiful, with flowing brown hair, leaning over to say something that made him laugh. The car stopped at a red light right in front of me, so close I could see the radiant smile on his face. In the back seat, a cherubic little boy, about 2 years old, was leaning forward, babbling, "Daddy, Daddy." Caspian turned, his eyes filled with adoration, reached back to gently cup the boy's cheek, and then leaned over to give the woman beside him a tender kiss. The scene was as perfect as a postcard of an idyllic family, one that anyone would admire. I felt as if my chest had been hollowed out, a cold wind whistling through the void in my soul. So, for the past 3 years, while I was eating ramen to save every penny, while I was working myself to exhaustion to send him money to pay off his debts, he was using my hard-earned money to build another life, another family. He had built his happiness on my sacrifice. He laughed and loved on the foundation of my lonely, waiting heart. After witnessing Caspian's picture-perfect family charade, I no longer hesitated to hire a private investigator to dig deeper into his finances. With the initial information from Zola and my own business connections, unmasking this fraudulent entrepreneur wasn't too difficult. Just 3 days later, a thick file was placed on my desk, laying bare the dark secrets Caspian had carefully hidden for years. I flipped through the pages, feeling like I was reading the script of a cheap crime drama. The engineering firm in Dubai he boasted about working for had actually gone bankrupt and dissolved 2 years prior. He had never held a steady job overseas. His passport showed no entry stamps for the UAE in the last 3 years. It was all a web of photoshopped images and faked check-ins to fool me and our families. But even more horrifying was his long list of debts. Caspian was a heavy gambler, addicted to online poker and volatile crypto investments. The allure of quick riches had turned him into a moth flying into the flame. The money I had sent, along with funds he had borrowed from loan sharks under the guise of business investments, had all vanished with his losing bets. He was carrying a debt of over $100,000 to dangerous people, with the interest compounding daily. I shuddered when I read the report on his mistress. Her name was Skylar, a social media influencer who cultivated an image of luxury but was, in reality, just another victim and pawn in his game. Caspian had used his polished exterior and fake credentials to lure her in, even sweet-talking her into co-signing for several of his high-interest loans. The luxury apartment, the fancy car, it was all rented or heavily financed, a hollow facade to maintain his image and continue scamming new victims. At that moment, his motive for murder became crystal clear. My $2 million life insurance policy was his only lifeline, his one ticket out of the mountain of debt and back to his life of leisure with his mistress. He needed me dead not only for the insurance money but also to liquidate my assets and seize everything I had worked for. I gave a bitter laugh and tossed the file onto the table. His calculations were so meticulous, so cruel. He valued the life of his loyal wife less than the meaningless numbers on a betting screen. He was ready to push me to my death, to trade my life for his own financial freedom. A man this cold-blooded and soulless, I could no longer call him my husband. I could no longer even consider him human. I called Zola, my voice cold and decisive. Zola, I have all the proof of his motive now. What we need is evidence of his method. We need to see the person you mentioned. Zola understood immediately. Don't worry, miss. He's always been tormented by that cold case from years ago. He'll help us. As arranged by Zola, I went to meet Detective Beckett on a late afternoon in a quiet, tree-lined street. Beckett was a retired homicide detective who had handled the case of Zola's daughter years ago but had been forced to close it due to a lack of evidence. His house was modest and tidy, but what stood out was a small study filled with books and old forensic equipment, a corner where he continued his quiet quest for justice in unresolved cases. Beckett, a man with white hair and sharp eyes behind his reading glasses, greeted us with a somber expression. When I placed the charred fragments of the gift box, which Zola and I had retrieved from the river, on his desk, he carefully put on a pair of gloves and used tweezers to examine each piece under a magnifying lamp. The room fell silent, the only sounds the ticking of an old wall clock and my own anxious breathing. After a long moment, Beckett looked up, took off his glasses, and looked directly at us. His gaze was serious. "Young lady, you were incredibly lucky. This was no accident, no simple fire caused by a short circuit or natural chemical reaction. In this debris, I found a tiny fragment of piezoelectric ceramic." Seeing my confused look, Beckett explained further. Piezoelectric ceramic is a special material. When subjected to mechanical stress, like being bent or struck, it generates an electric spark. The person who made this box designed an extremely sophisticated trap. He attached this ceramic shard to the lid and the ribbon. The moment you lifted the lid or cut the ribbon, the force would trigger the spark, igniting a highly flammable and toxic chemical mixture packed inside. He paused, his voice lowering with sorrow. Years ago, in Dahlia's case, the fire destroyed the scene so completely that we never found a piece of the trigger mechanism. He used that loophole to stage it as an accident caused by an exploding aerosol can. But this time, because you threw the box into the water, the temperature change was less extreme, and the explosion didn't completely obliterate everything. It left us this precious piece of evidence. A cold dread washed over me as I imagined myself excitedly opening the gift and being consumed by that ghastly green flame. He didn't just want to kill me. He wanted to erase every trace, to turn me into the unfortunate victim of a freak accident. He was a demon in human form, intelligent and educated, but he used his knowledge to take the lives of the women who loved him. Zola sat beside me, burying her face in her hands, her body shaking with silent sobs. "Oh God, my Dahlia, she died such a horrible death. He's a monster. How could he be so cruel?" Beckett patted her shoulder comfortingly, then turned to me, his eyes resolute. "Now we know how he does it. But to catch him in the act, we need direct evidence of him attempting it on you. This ceramic piece proves the box was a bomb, but he could deny it, claim he bought it from someone else or that it was swapped without his knowledge." I clenched my fists and looked at Beckett. "What do I have to do, detective? I can't let him get away with this." Beckett looked at me, his gaze deep and searching. "Are you willing to take a risk? We need a trap to catch this beast, and you'll have to be the one to walk into the lion's den." I lifted my head and met his gaze, all hesitation gone. "I can do it, Detective Beckett. I already died once on that riverbank. This life I have now is for getting justice. Tell me what I need to do." Beckett nodded, a look of respect in his old eyes. "We'll have to fight fire with fire." He began to lay out the plan, his voice calm and steady. His failure this time will make him desperate. But his greed and his debts will push him to try again, and the next attempt will be even more cunning. We need to give him an opportunity, one that looks too good to pass up, so he'll expose himself. The plan was for me to pretend to have a complete mental breakdown, to fall into a deep depression from overwork and loneliness. I would create the image of a weak, unstable wife who desperately needed her husband's protection. This would play into his fake hero complex and, more importantly, create the perfect cover for a staged accident or suicide. You have to make it believable, Beckett instructed. Use your social media. Complain, act erratically. He's watching you very closely, I'm sure of it. When he sees that the prey is wounded, he won't be able to just sit back in Dubai anymore. He'll have to come back to finish the job. Zola took my hand. Hers was warm and rough. Miss Sloane, Detective Beckett and I will be behind you every step of the way. I'll quit my job at the building and find a way to get close to your apartment to support you. We're a team. You are not fighting alone. I looked at them, a grieving mother and a haunted old detective, and I felt a surge of strength. I was not alone. From that day on, I began my performance. I posted dark, melancholic statuses on Facebook, setting them to be visible only to close friends and family, lamenting my sleepless nights and strange hallucinations in the empty apartment. I wrote about splitting headaches, about forgetting to turn off the stove, forgetting to lock the door. I was turning myself into a wounded animal, a tempting piece of bait writhing in despair, all to lure the beast out of its hiding place. With every post, I imagined Caspian's smug face as he read it. He must be smiling to himself, thinking that fate was on his side, that I was walking straight into the death he had planned without him having to lift a finger. Following the plan meticulously crafted with Detective Beckett, I began transforming my social media profile into the grim diary of a woman spiraling into despair. I carefully adjusted the privacy settings so only my family and, most importantly, Caspian could see the posts. I wanted him to believe I was truly alone and at my wits' end. It started with photos of my blank ceiling taken at 3 a.m., accompanied by short, haunting captions. Another sleepless night. My head feels like it's splitting open. When will the noise in my head finally stop? In the following days, I escalated the drama. I posted a picture of a bottle of sleeping pills scattered on my desk next to a mountain of unfinished work. I wrote about an invisible fear that gripped me whenever I entered my large, cold apartment, a feeling of being watched from the shadows. I deliberately took a photo of a badly burnt pot on the stove, complaining about my worsening memory. I even forgot to turn off the burner, almost burned the whole place down. What is happening to me? Just as Detective Beckett predicted, the beast lurking in the shadows began to smell the blood of its wounded prey. Less than 10 minutes after I posted the picture of the burnt pot, my phone rang. It was Caspian. I took a deep breath, closing my eyes to regulate my breathing, summoning the most fragile, bewildered tone I could manage before answering. Caspian's frantic, concerned voice came through the line. "Sloane, honey, what happened? I just saw your post. How could you let the pot burn like that? Are you okay? Are you hurt? What's been going on with you lately? I'm worried sick." Hearing that voice, a chill ran down my spine. This cloyingly sweet, fake concern that once melted my heart now made me want to vomit. I sniffled, forcing out a choked sob. "Caspian, I'm so scared. I don't know what's wrong with me. My head hurts so much, and I keep forgetting things. Sometimes I just want to let everything go, to find some peace. I'm just so tired." I let my sentence trail off, leaving a terrifying pause, just long enough for his imagination to paint a picture of me standing on the edge of a precipice. Caspian was silent for a moment, and then his voice became urgent, more resolute than ever. "Don't talk like that. Don't you dare do anything foolish. I can't leave you alone like this. I'm going to arrange my work here. I'll take a leave of absence and fly back to be with you immediately. Just wait for me, okay? I'm coming home to take care of you." I feigned surprise, my voice trembling with emotion. "Really, Caspian? You can really come back? But what about your project? It's so busy right now. Won't you get fired?" Caspian sighed, his voice dripping with affection. "Work is important, but you are more important than anything. I can find another job, but I can't live without you. Just stay home and be good. Take your medicine. I'll book my ticket and let you know when to pick me up." After hanging up, I threw the phone onto the sofa, as if it were something filthy. I wiped the crocodile tears from my face, a cold smile forming on my lips. He took the bait even faster than I expected. He wasn't coming back because he was worried about me. He was coming back to ensure my death would perfectly fit the accident due to depression script he was so eager to direct. As soon as I confirmed Caspian was flying back from Dubai, I immediately notified Detective Beckett and Zola. Time was short. We had to turn my apartment into a perfect trap before he arrived. Beckett, with his years of experience as an investigator, had already prepared a set of microcameras, the latest models that could stream live footage to a cloud server without emitting any light or signal. The next morning, Zola showed up at my door disguised as a maintenance worker. She wore a baggy blue jumpsuit and a baseball cap pulled low, carrying a heavy tool bag. To avoid suspicion from neighbors and building security, I had already informed management that I needed emergency repairs on my plumbing and electrical systems due to recent flickering lights and leaks, symptoms that perfectly matched my social media narrative of a home in disrepair. Zola entered and locked the door behind her. We exchanged a knowing glance and got to work. Beckett directed us remotely via phone, guiding us on the best placements for the cameras to be both discreet and comprehensive. The most critical location was the kitchen, specifically the area around the main gas valve and the stove, the place Beckett and I were certain would be Caspian's chosen stage. My hands trembled as I held the ladder for Zola to install a tiny camera, no bigger than a pinhead, into a crevice in the range hood, its lens aimed directly at the gas cooktop. Zola worked with a swift efficiency. Her rough hands, accustomed to mops and brooms, were now deftly connecting wires and hiding them within the wall's utility panel. She whispered, "Don't worry, miss. I've hidden it well. He'd have to tear the whole kitchen apart to find it." Next was the bedroom, the most private space, but also where I would be most vulnerable. We installed a camera disguised as a power outlet across from the bed and another hidden in the vent of the air conditioning unit. The living room was also fitted with 2 wide-angle cameras to monitor his every move. It took us nearly 3 hours, sweat soaking through our clothes, to finish the installation. Beckett confirmed from his end that the feeds were clear, with sharp video and crisp audio. Looking at the tablet screen, seeing every corner of my home displayed before me, I felt a strange mix of security and dread. The place that was once my sanctuary was now a stage, a deadly arena where invisible eyes waited to record a crime. Before she left, Zola gripped my hand, her eyes filled with concern. "Miss Sloane, from now on, every word you say, every move you make in this house has to be careful. When he comes back, you'll be living with the enemy, acting 24/7. Can you handle it?" I looked at her and smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry, Zola. I can handle it. For justice for your daughter and for my own life, I will play the part of the naive wife until the very end." Zola left, leaving me alone in the vast apartment. I walked through the rooms, checking everything one last time. The hidden cameras felt like silent guardians, giving me strength. 3 days later, I drove to O'Hare International Airport to pick up Caspian, right on schedule. The airport was bustling, a cacophony of announcements and the joyous sounds of reuniting families. I stood in a quiet corner near the international arrivals gate, my heart pounding not with anticipation, but with the tension of someone about to walk into a tiger's den. I wore a loose-fitting dress and no makeup, my face genuinely gaunt, and my eyes shadowed after several sleepless nights. A stream of passengers poured through the gates, and then I saw him. Caspian emerged, looking dapper and distinguished, pushing a large suitcase. He wore a long, dark coat and a wool scarf, looking every bit the gentleman returning from a cold European winter. He wore sunglasses, but his trademark half-smile was unmistakable. I noticed his skin was fair and his hands were smooth, showing no signs of the hardship of manual labor abroad. When his eyes met mine, his smile broadened. He let go of the suitcase and strode towards me with his arms wide open. I suppressed the wave of disgust rising in my gut and ran into his arms, bursting into tears like a heartbroken child finding solace. He held me tight, patting my back gently, his deep voice murmuring in my ear. "I'm back. My silly girl, don't cry anymore. I'm here now. No one can hurt you." The scent of expensive cologne filled my nostrils, not the smell of sweat or distant travels. It was the same fragrance I had smelled on his mistress that day. It was the smell of betrayal, the smell of lies. I buried my head in his chest, not for warmth, but to hide the cold, hard stare I fixed on the empty space behind him. I whispered, "You're really back." I thought I was dreaming. "I've been so scared, Caspian. I was afraid I would die all alone in that house." Caspian gently pushed me back to look at my face, his eyes filled with fake pity. "Oh my God, look at you. Why are you so pale and thin? You've lost so much weight." "I'm so sorry. It's all my fault for being away for so long, for not being here to take care of you. But I'm back for good this time. I'll make it all up to you. I'll fatten you up until you're my beautiful Sloane again." His words were as sweet as honey, but I could feel the cold, calculating assessment in his eyes as he scanned my frail appearance. On the drive home, he chattered on about his long, tiring flight, the difficult layover, and how much he missed home. He was so deep in character that if I didn't know the truth, I would have fallen for his act all over again. I remained silent, merely nodding or offering a weak response, playing my part as the emotionally exhausted wife. When we arrived at the apartment, he stepped inside and immediately scanned the room, his eyes sharp as a hawk's. He noted the pill bottles on the table, the messy clothes, and the burnt pot I had left in the kitchen. He sighed, feigning sympathy. "It's okay if the house is a little messy, honey. Your health is what's most important. You go rest. Let me clean up. I'll cook you a delicious meal. It's been a long time since you've had my cooking, hasn't it?" I obediently nodded and dragged my feet into the bedroom. The moment the door closed, I straightened up, all traces of weakness vanishing. I tiptoed to my vanity and turned on the tablet connected to the camera system. On the screen, I saw Caspian standing in the middle of the living room. He wasn't cleaning up. He was standing perfectly still, listening for any sound from my room. Through the sharp, black and white camera feed, I watched Caspian move around the kitchen with an expression entirely different from the one he wore at the airport. The warm smile and worried eyes were gone, replaced by a cold, calculating focus. He opened the fridge, took out some groceries I had bought, but didn't start cooking. First, he washed his hands meticulously. Then his safety inspection began. He crouched down and opened the cabinet beneath the gas stove, where the main valve was located. He used his phone's flashlight to carefully inspect every inch of the gas line and each connection point. I held my breath, my heart pounding. He had no idea that just above his head, a tiny electronic eye was recording his every move. He reached out and tested the main valve, turning it on and off, checking its smoothness. He pressed his ear against the pipe, listening, then stood up and walked to the stove, flicking the igniter. A blue flame flared up. He adjusted it, watching the color and intensity. He turned it off, but kept his hand on the knob, turning it just enough to release a tiny, almost imperceptible hiss of gas before quickly shutting it off again. His actions were not those of a man preparing a meal, but of a technician inspecting equipment or a killer checking his weapon. He looked up at the ventilation system and the kitchen window. He walked over and sealed the window shut, then drew the blinds. He muttered something the camera's microphone couldn't pick up, but from his lip movements, I could guess he was calculating the room's volume and how long it would take for the gas to fill the space. A chill ran down my spine. He was rehearsing. He was preparing for a perfect gas leak, a fatal accident where the victim was his depressed, forgetful wife sleeping in the other room. He wanted to ensure that when he made his move, it would be flawless, leaving no suspicious traces. Only after his inspection was complete did he begin to chop vegetables and prepare the meal, even whistling softly to himself. His calm, cruel composure was terrifying. He could plot his wife's murder while simultaneously cooking her a loving meal. His psyche was twisted beyond comprehension. An hour later, Caspian knocked on my door, his voice once again dripping with sweet concern. "Honey, dinner's ready. Wake up and have something warm. I made your favorite soup." I quickly shut off the tablet, mussed up my hair, and took a deep breath to regain my weary expression. I opened the door to see him standing there in an apron, holding a steaming bowl, smiling like a model husband. I looked at the soup, then into his eyes, trying not to reveal the disgust churning in my stomach. I managed a weak smile. "Thank you, Caspian. It smells wonderful. I feel like I'm dreaming, getting to eat a home-cooked meal from my husband again. He led me to the table, pulled out my chair, and lovingly served me. I picked up the spoon, my hand trembling slightly, wondering if this soup contained any other special ingredients besides fake love. That night, an unseasonable rain began to fall over Chicago, the steady drumming against the window panes, creating a bleak and dreary atmosphere. I sat huddled on the bed, wrapped in a thick comforter, staring blankly at a comedy on TV without comprehending a single word. The apartment was bathed in a warm yellow light that felt cozy visually, but was bone-chillingly cold emotionally. Caspian was in the kitchen. The clinking of a spoon against a mug echoed eerily in the quiet night. A few moments later, he entered the bedroom carrying a steaming glass of milk, the sweet, vanilla-scented steam rising in a small cloud. He sat on the edge of the bed, his eyes filled with the same feigned concern that now made my skin crawl. He gently blew on the milk before holding it out to me, his voice a low, sweet murmur. "Here, honey, drink some warm milk. It will help you sleep. I've seen how much you've been tossing and turning. You have such dark circles under your eyes. It breaks my heart to see you like this." I stared at the opaque white liquid, a terrible suspicion rising within me. Detective Beckett had warned me that he would choose the quietest method, and poison or a strong sedative was the most likely scenario for staging an accident. I fought to keep my racing heart in check and looked up at him, putting on a childish, pouting tone. "I don't want to. Everything tastes bitter. It's hard to swallow anything." Caspian patiently coaxed me, his hand stroking my hair in a gesture that was meant to be loving but felt sinister. "Come on, just a little bit." I added some honey to it. "It's good for your nerves. I promise you'll have a good night's sleep after this." A good night's sleep or an eternal one, I thought, laughing bitterly to myself at the cruelty hidden beneath his sugary words. Knowing that refusing completely would arouse suspicion, I reluctantly took the glass. I brought it to my lips and took a tiny sip, letting the liquid pass over my tongue but holding a small amount in my mouth. Then, I pretended to choke, coughing violently. My hand trembled, spilling some of the milk onto the comforter. I quickly grabbed a tissue from the nightstand and spat the mouthful of milk into the crumpled paper. "Between coughs," I said in a hoarse voice, "See? I told you it was hard to drink. It tastes strange. I can't." Caspian quickly put the glass down and rubbed my back, a flash of frustration crossing his face before being replaced by his usual concerned mask. Okay. If you can't drink it, don't force yourself. Just lie down and rest. I'll get a cloth to clean this up." The moment he turned and walked to the bathroom, I swiftly tore off the milk-soaked corner of the tissue, balled it up, and stuffed it deep into the pocket of my pajama pants. After Caspian had cleaned the spill and gone back to the living room, I locked the bedroom door and rushed into my private bathroom. My hands shook as I took out the damp paper wad and a small drug testing kit that Detective Beckett had given me. I squeezed every last drop of milk from the paper onto the test strip, my heart pounding with every passing second. 1 minute, 2 minutes, then 2 distinct red lines appeared. My legs gave out, and I had to lean against the sink to keep from falling. Positive. For a high dose of benzodiazepines. He had drugged me. He wanted me in a death-like slumber, completely unable to fight back or perceive danger, so he could execute the next stage of his monstrous plan. I looked at my reflection in the mirror as tears streamed down my face. Even though I had prepared myself for this, holding the proof in my hands still felt like a knife twisting in my gut. The man I had once loved more than life itself was now methodically trying to kill me. I wiped my tears, flushed the evidence down the toilet, and returned to bed. About 15 minutes after turning off the lights, I began to regulate my breathing, making it deep, even, and heavy, as if I were in a drug-induced stupor. The room was pitch black, save for the faint glow of a street lamp filtering through the curtains, casting eerie shadows on the wall. I lay perfectly still, all my senses on high alert. I heard the soft shuffle of Caspian's slippers outside my door. The doorknob turned silently, and the door creaked open just enough for a sliver of yellow light from the living room to slice through the darkness. I knew he was standing there, watching me, checking to see if his poison had taken effect. I remained motionless, one arm hanging limply off the side of the bed. He stood there for what felt like an eternity before the door closed softly. As soon as his footsteps receded towards the kitchen, my eyes snapped open. I grabbed the tablet hidden under my pillow and pulled the covers over my head to hide the screen's light. On the infrared camera feed, Caspian's form was a cold, black and white specter. He didn't turn on the kitchen light, using only his phone's flashlight as he moved like a ghost. He went to the kitchen window and sealed the ventilation grate with a roll of duct tape, ensuring no air could escape. His actions were disturbingly precise. After sealing the room, he approached the gas stove. The camera in the range hood provided a clear view of his gloved hands. He used a thick cloth to grip the main gas valve and slowly, carefully turned it. Not all the way, but just enough for gas to leak out steadily, to slowly and silently fill the sealed apartment. The faint hiss was audible through the tablet's speaker, a sound of creeping death that made my scalp tingle. He stood there, checking his watch, his lips moving as he calculated the time. He was creating a natural gas leak, the kind caused by faulty equipment or a forgetful, depressed wife, not a sudden, suspicious release. Once his work was done, Caspian turned off his flashlight and crept to the front door. He put on his shoes and coat and left. He needed a perfect alibi. The hallway camera, which Detective Beckett had gained access to, recorded him entering the elevator, looking calm, even nodding to a neighbor. He would go to a 24-hour diner or coffee shop, waiting for me to slowly suffocate at home. The moment the front door clicked shut, I knew it was my time. I threw off the covers, all pretense of drowsiness gone. The sickeningly sweet smell of gas was already starting to fill the air. I knew I didn't have much time. A single spark, or the concentration of gas reaching a critical level, and I would be dead. I bolted from the bedroom, running through the dark apartment, a space I knew by heart. It was a race against death. I burst into the kitchen, holding my breath. My trembling hands found the main valve and twisted it shut. The hissing stopped. Immediately, I ran to the windows and the balcony door, throwing them wide open. A blast of cold night air rushed in, a life-giving force that swept away the suffocating smell of death. I leaned against the balcony railing, gasping for fresh air, my lungs burning. Once I had calmed down, I went back inside and confirmed that the video of Caspian tampering with the gas line had been safely uploaded to the cloud and a copy sent to Detective Beckett. This was the irrefutable proof, the sword of justice that would sever all his escape routes. My phone vibrated. A text from Beckett. He's at the 24-hour diner 2 blocks away. Are you okay? Did you get the video? I replied. I'm safe. Video secured. Now for the rest of the performance. This was the hardest part. I had to return to the scene and play the role of the lucky survivor. I closed the windows most of the way, leaving just a crack to let the air circulate but retaining a faint, lingering smell of gas, enough for Caspian to notice, but not enough to be dangerous. I went back to bed, pulled up the covers, and waited. Lying in the dark, fear crept back in. What if he suspected something? What if he became desperate and attacked me directly when he saw his plan had failed? I gripped the small can of pepper spray hidden under my pillow, my last line of defense. Time crawled by. About 45 minutes later, I heard the key in the lock. He was back. His footsteps were no longer cautious but hurried. He was expecting to find a house filled with gas, a wife no longer breathing. He stepped inside, and the first thing he did was sniff the air. I could imagine his nose twitching as he tried to gauge the gas concentration. He would be confused. The smell was too faint. His footsteps halted in the living room. Silence. He was trying to figure out what went wrong. Then, his footsteps headed towards my bedroom. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept my breathing even. The door opened. He stood there, staring at my motionless form. I could feel his gaze on me, cold and murderous. In this moment, the line between life and death was razor thin. He leaned down, his face close to mine. I could feel his hot breath on my cheek, but the coldness emanating from his black heart was all I could sense. He reached out a trembling finger and placed it just under my nose to check my breathing. The instant his skin touched mine, I stirred, making a soft, moaning sound as if in a dream, and rolled over to face the wall. His hand shot back as if he'd touched a hot stove. He stumbled backward, bumping into the dresser. "Alive? Still alive?" I heard him whisper, his voice filled with disbelief and panic. He couldn't believe it. By his calculations, the amount of gas released should have been more than enough to kill a sleeping person, yet here I was, breathing steadily. He ran out of the room and back to the kitchen. I heard the click, click, click of the stove's igniter. The flame caught. The gas was working. So why? Why had the trap failed? He frantically rechecked the windows. They were sealed. He stood in the middle of the kitchen, utterly bewildered. He returned to the bedroom and slumped into the armchair in the corner, his eyes never leaving me. He sat there for over an hour, chain-smoking, the acrid smell filling the room. I knew he was contemplating a more direct approach, but his cowardice and meticulous nature won out. He was afraid of leaving physical evidence. He needed a natural death. He stubbed out his cigarette and climbed into bed beside me, his back to me. His body was tense. He was already plotting Plan B. A domestic accident had failed. Now, it would have to be an accident outdoors, somewhere remote, where a death could be more easily staged. I lay beside the man who wanted me dead, thinking, "You're disappointed, aren't you, Caspian? Don't worry, this is just the beginning. The final act has plenty more surprises in store for you." The next morning, weak sunlight filtered through the heavy curtains, falling on my face as I feigned sleep. I heard the familiar clatter from the kitchen, the soft clinking of dishes, and the smell of toasted bread and fried eggs. In the past, this would have been a happy awakening. Now, the aroma only filled me with revulsion and high alert. I knew the man in the kitchen had failed to turn it into a gas chamber just last night. I waited another 15 minutes before groggily emerging from the bedroom. Caspian stood with his back to me, wearing a blue apron, looking like a devoted husband preparing breakfast. Hearing my footsteps, he turned, a bright smile on his face, but his eyes were bloodshot from a sleepless night of plotting. "Good morning, sleepyhead. Did you have a good sleep?" "You were so deeply asleep I didn't have the heart to wake you. I made your favorite, eggs and toast. Eat up." I sat down, staring at the perfectly presented plate, wondering what special ingredients it might contain today. I feigned a headache, my voice groggy. I slept like a log, didn't hear a thing. But it's strange. Last night, I dreamt I was suffocating, like something was pressing down on my chest. I feel so sore this morning. The corner of Caspian's eye twitched. His hand, pouring orange juice, froze for a fraction of a second. He placed the glass in front of me, forcing a laugh. "You're probably just stressed. Maybe the air in here is too stuffy. I think being cooped up all day is making you feel worse." He sat down opposite me, avoiding my gaze. After a moment, he spoke, his tone feigning excitement, but I could hear the urgency beneath it. "Sloan, how about we get out of the city for a bit this weekend? Let's go camping at Starved Rock State Park. The fresh air, the quiet, the beautiful river, it would be perfect for you to relax and clear your head." Starved Rock, I thought, smiling inwardly. A remote, rugged park with cliffs and a river, the perfect place to stage a tragic drowning or a fatal fall. With his indoor plan foiled, the beast was seeking a larger stage. I looked up at him, my eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and hesitation. "That's so far Caspian. I don't know if I have the energy." He quickly grabbed my hand. "We'll be driving. You won't have to walk. I'll handle everything. You just sit back and enjoy the scenery. Please, Sloan. Think of it as a second honeymoon to make up for the last 3 years. I want to do this for you." Seeing his desperate expression, I knew this was the moment we had been waiting for. I gave a weak nod. "Okay, Caspian. As long as I'm with you, I'll go anywhere." On Sunday morning, the sky over Chicago was overcast. Caspian was up early, bustling around, packing a tent, food, and fishing gear into a rented pickup truck. From the balcony, I watched him meticulously check the tires and engine the final preparations of a killer, reviewing his tools. I dressed in simple athletic wear, a micro recorder, and a GPS tracker from Detective Beckett hidden in my jacket pocket. Before going downstairs, I sent a message to our secure group chat. "We're leaving now. Black pickup truck, license plate. Stay close." Almost instantly, read receipts from Beckett and Zola appeared, steadying my nerves. In the truck, Caspian was the perfect gentleman, opening my door and fastening my seatbelt. His face was unnaturally cheerful. He put on some soft instrumental music, trying to create a romantic atmosphere, but his knuckles were white as he gripped the steering wheel, and a sheen of sweat covered his brow despite the cold air conditioning. As we entered the winding roads leading to the park, the surroundings became eerily quiet. Caspian slowed down, his eyes darting between the rearview mirror and the dense woods on either side of the road. He was looking for the right spot, a place secluded and dangerous enough for his crime. "Are you tired? We're almost there. This spot has a great view. Let's stop and stretch our legs," he suddenly said, his voice trembling slightly. He turned onto a narrow dirt path that led to a rocky overlook jutting out over the Illinois River. Below was a steep drop to the deep, silent water. I clutched the recorder in my pocket, my finger on the on button. My heart was pounding, but I knew I had to remain calm. The final act was beginning. I turned to him and managed a faint smile. "Okay, let's get some fresh air." The wind swept up from the river, cold and damp. The overlook was beautiful but treacherous, a perfect stage for a tragedy. Caspian led me to the very edge. He spread his arms wide, taking a deep breath, then turned to me. The fake concern was gone from his eyes, replaced by a cold, manic resolve. "What do you think of this place?" he asked, his voice low. "Beautiful, isn't it? A perfect place for a permanent rest." The implication hung in the air. I didn't back down. I held up my phone, displaying the photo I had taken of him with Skylar and their son. "It's lovely, Caspian, but a place this beautiful, you should have brought Skylar and your little boy, not me." The color drained from his face. His smile froze. He stared at the screen, speechless, as if he'd been slapped. What is this? How did you... I don't know what you're talking about." I took a step forward, forcing him closer to the edge. I laughed, a cold, sharp sound. "You don't understand? Did you think I was that stupid, Caspian? Did you think I didn't know you were never in Dubai? That you were living in Lincoln Park off my money while you gambled it all away? Did you think I didn't know about the $2 million insurance policy?" Every word was a blow, shattering his facade. He trembled, looking from me to the abyss below. He realized the helpless prey he intended to slaughter was actually a hunter who had laid a trap. "You were going to push me, weren't you? Stage it as a tragic accident?" I pressed on, my voice echoing in the quiet clearing. "Too bad for you, Caspian. Your play is over." Cornered, Caspian's composure snapped. He let out a wild, crazed laugh that bounced off the rock walls. "So you know everything," he screamed, dropping all pretense. "I underestimated you. I thought you were just a brainless workhorse, earning money for me to spend." He lunged towards me, his face contorted with rage. "And what about Dahlia, the girl from 5 years ago? Did she deserve to die too?" I yelled, determined to get his full confession. "Her name was the final trigger. She was stupid, just like you," he shrieked. "She was going to leave me when I was in debt, so she had to die. I sent her a gift, a masterpiece, and poof, she was gone, leaving me enough money to start over. And you're next." He lunged, his hands reaching for my throat. I screamed not in fear, but as a signal. Just as his fingers grazed my neck, a siren wailed, tearing through the silence. Figures in police uniforms burst from the surrounding woods. "Police, freeze! Put your hands up!" Caspian froze, his expression shifting from rage to pure terror as he found himself staring down the barrel of a gun. He had walked right into the one trap he never saw coming. 6 months after that fateful day at Starved Rock, the trial began. The sky over Chicago wept, rain lashing against the courthouse windows. I sat in the victim's gallery, with Detective Beckett and Zola by my side. Zola clutched a photo of Dahlia, her eyes fixed on the man in the defendant's box. Caspian was a hollowed-out version of his former self, gaunt and broken. When his eyes met mine, he flinched and looked away. Skylar, his mistress, sat beside him, sobbing quietly. The evidence was overwhelming. The video of him tampering with the gas, the audio recording of his confession on the cliff, the piezoelectric ceramic fragment. Faced with it all, Caspian confessed to everything: the murder of Dahlia 5 years ago, the elaborate 3-year deception, and the multiple attempts on my life for the insurance money. The judge's gavel fell with a final, resounding crack. For 2 counts of murder and multiple counts of fraud, Caspian was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Skylar received a 15-year sentence for her role as an accomplice. Justice had been served. The debt of blood was paid. Zola held Dahlia's photo high, tears streaming down her face. "My child," she whispered into the rain-streaked glass, "you can rest now. The man who hurt you has paid for his crimes. You can finally rest in peace." The legal battles that followed were exhausting, untangling the massive web of debt and deceit Caspian had woven. The luxury apartment, the car, the designer clothes, all were repossessed. The money I had sent him, the insurance payout from Dahlia's death, all of it had been squandered on gambling and crypto. He was nothing but a parasite. With Beckett's help, I managed to prove that my own assets were separate from his criminal activities and recovered most of what was rightfully mine. I used a portion of it to help Zola renovate her family home and set up a retirement fund for her. I paid off the small debts Caspian had incurred in our name, a final severing of ties. I returned to the apartment one last time. The space, once my home, now felt like a tomb, haunted by false memories and the lingering scent of gas and betrayal. I couldn't stay. I sold it quickly, at a loss, just to be free of it. Zola helped me pack. As we sorted through the remnants of my old life, a new bond formed between us, 2 women scarred by the same man, finding solace in each other's company. 3 months later, on a quiet, tree-lined street in a peaceful neighborhood, a small flower shop opened its doors. The simple wooden sign read, "Dahlia's Peace." It wasn't just a business, it was a sanctuary, a place for us to heal, to honor the memory of the lost, and to cherish the present. I stood behind the counter, arranging a bouquet of bright yellow sunflowers, their faces turned towards the light. Zola, looking 10 years younger, watered the plants on the porch, a genuine, peaceful smile on her face. A customer came in, bringing a cascade of warm afternoon sunlight with him. I looked up and smiled, a real smile, feeling a warmth spread from my heart. Outside, the storm had passed. The sky was clear and blue. The storm inside me had passed, too. Before me was a new dawn, brilliant and full of hope.